you can mess up as a therapist, or we can have a bad session. But once again, like you said, therapy and the work that's done is done outside. You applying things to your life and living it and enjoying and finding enjoyment and experimenting and coming back and be like, hey, here's what I learned, and we decompress. When you guys mentioned like, oh yeah, I stole this from my therapist, I stole that from my therapist, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the thing. So being able to kind of take that and apply it to work has been rejuvenating. And so I think it just ties back to like therapists and being in this island and wanting to save your confidence, and even taking that step to go to therapy is just so rejuvenating and opens up the doors and makes you a better therapist. And so trying to be able to overcome that, trying to be able to be like, yeah, let's be open and honest about our vulnerabilities and the challenges we face and the difficulties of being human and flawed beings is important to us. And so let's not let that stop us from being our authentic selves and truthful and happy, or just being good clinicians for our clients. What's good, everybody? Jeremiah Knight here, and you're tuning into Therapy House, the podcast. This is our editorial. Joining me today is Ceci.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, she's back.
Good to be back.
Yes. Usually we like to do these editorials. We put them in place just to kind of give our guests a chance to respond or share their insights into some of the episodes. An hour, 2 hours, or however long we spend together. It's nice to step away, marinate, and think about the things that either we didn't say, wish we said, or could elaborate more on. So here's our chance. Courageous Ceci. So yes, Ceci, thinking about to our episode, yeah, we went pretty deep. We talked about a lot of different things. What was your kind of takeaway from it?
I felt very thankful that we gave each other opportunity and space to talk about some of these things that maybe don't come up in conversation so regularly. It's talking about our anxieties as the professionals. I think that for the most part, we focus on our clients, right? And their needs and what we can provide for them. And sometimes we forget to talk about how we're doing. Where are we at with every client and every case? And I took our conversation and the things that came up and I brought them back to where I work and the clinicians that I supervise. And I was more mindful of making sure that I was checking in on them and their feelings. And I feel like that was one of the bigger takeaways for me from that episode.
Yeah. At least in that process, do you feel like at least some of the clinicians you've been working with have been able to kind of be open about that? Or is that like a new door, an open frontier that they're like, whoa, hold on. You don't have access clearance for that.
Yeah. I think for the most part, there was uncomfortable feelings for them. And I think, it's because, again, we sometimes don't allocate time for that.
Yeah.
And so coming into supervision where in the past, I didn't make time for that. Doing that for the first time for them was probably like, wait, what's going on? Why are we talking about my anxieties? We usually just talk about cases and what we're doing and interventions and what the client needs. So I think that there was definitely a little bit of anxiety that was provoked just in that situation itself. But I do think that eventually there was an understanding of why we were doing it, why it needed to happen. Some clinicians were more open to it. Others were a little bit more avoidant. But I think that in the end, there was learning all around on my end too.
Right. Because I think really trying to think back to even my experiences beginning to even think about it or trying to talk about it with the boys or bring it here to this podcast. And in some pieces, it definitely felt like, no, I need to show that I'm good at my job. I need to portray that. Otherwise, then you're going to know secretly. You're going to know, and then it spreads, and then my imposter syndrome grows. I think there's other piece in which I think they talk about it with cornerbacks in football, which you're basically on an island, and if this person gets past you, then it's over. So you need to have this certain level of confidence and bravado and belief in that you're hot shit. And so even with therapists, I think there was some piece of me that felt like, no, I can't admit it. I can't even admit it to myself that, no, I'm anxious, or this case is too big, or I can't handle it. And so I need to believe it. I need to keep the confidence in. If I let it slip, that breaks down my whole process. And I'll never get it back. But no, there's still a sense of which we can talk about this. I can actually get the reassurance from sharing my difficulties, or at least even get the resources I need to it. Hey, there might be an additional perspective in which you may have, or like, hey, have you thought about it in this way? And so then reassurance, the plug gets blocked up. I get a little bit better with my approach, and or at least just the confidence to kind of move forward in kind of handling things. So this unknown of in this abstract position and job. And I feel like that it's settling, it's grounding in that. But then there's still the hurdle to kind of, I won't know that here. I would have to venture out of my zone. And so I think that's awesome that you would be able to bring that into the room, challenge people, and just be able to welcome it. Like, let's dip your toe over here. It may feel uncomfortable. Yes, it may throw off, your approach a little bit. But in a sense, it's more of those pieces of you're making room for, hey, you're not going to know everything. Anxiety is okay. And at least then, things that you can further tell yourself to kind of patch up the hole.
Yeah. And I try to model it too. I push myself to be an example of that as well. And so even sharing part of like my anxieties being a supervisor, or my current anxieties that I'm facing in my position, or what it was like when I was in their position. And so I feel like part of us working together and stepping out of those comfort zones is that I have to walk out of that comfort zone with them and lead the way and be okay too with my feelings around it too.
Exactly. Which I think is a process in and of itself, because you're being vulnerable, you're sharing things. I think there's also a fear of like a contagion. Like, if my supervisor's anxious, that makes me anxious. But then being able to be like, hey, but this is how I was able to bring it back in, or this is how I'm working on it. And the fact that these are things that, even though I don't have it fully figured out, these are people helping me. These are the tools I'm using, and I'm continuing to grow and continue to learn. This is part of the process. And so being able to give them that reassurance, even though they may not know, and there may not be certainty, or you may not have the experience, there's still a piece of which, hey, you're growing, you're going to find it. Are you taking the steps? Are you using you're helping the people? Are you, utilizing the people that you need? Are you being open here with me in this room? And this is where, the magic is made, and how you get better. So yes. And of course, we're going to all find our way to it. So do you feel like there was anything from the episode that you felt like, we touched on a lot of different pieces within our episode, whether it's imposter syndrome, or just riding the wave, or just even some of our own kind of insecurities or things that we're continuing to work on, kind of bleeding into treatment. Do you feel like there was anything that you didn't get a chance to elaborate on, or you would have loved to hear more on?
Yeah, I think, there's so many things that we can talk about, but one of the things that kind of played for me was when it comes to working with clients that are resistant to the treatment. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but...
Well, my supervisor likes reluctant. Resistant implies like your own expectations and things, and the kid, their own will. So they're just reluctant or hesitant, or they have a different perspective of things. And so...
Yeah. And so clients like that, where you have to end with them for whatever reason they choose to, they stop coming, and knowing, right, that there's still a lot for them to work on. And we do work with people, with clients who have high risks, and we see them, we know them, but they're just not ready for the treatment. They're not ready to absorb the interventions or whatever it is that we're working on with them. And that fear of like, you have to let this client go, and not fully sure what might be of them.
Yeah. Which I feel like I can see that also happening, at least the anxiety around that, even with just termination, even with the clients you've been working hard with, and we feel like we got into a good point, and now it's time to say goodbye, and we don't know where they'll go from here, what will happen. Will they be in a good spot? Will they not be? And so I think even with the non-reluctant, the compliant, and the ones that we've hit off, and now it's just, hopefully our time is up in some way, form, or fashion, and we got to let you go. I mean, for you, kind of what comes up in those moments?
In the moment that I guess we become aware that this client,
Yeah, this is as good as it gets. And
I'm a very hopeful person, so I hang on to that. I hang on that to the idea that even though maybe I don't see the results of the work, that I'm hopeful that in the future something will bloom for them. You know, I always say we're planting seeds. And I say that to my clinicians all the time when they get a little bit worried that they're not seeing progress or that they're not seeing the product of the work that's being done. And I always tell them, you know, some seeds are very quick to sprout and other seeds are redwood trees that take many, many years for it to even grow, you know? And so I run with this idea of I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that even if it was just one thing that's stuck with you, that in the future that will bloom and you will be able to utilize that at some point in your life. And that's how I try to end, and I try to hang on to that hope that, you know, it'll be okay.
yeah. I mean, plant seeds usually is one of the go-tos. Definitely heard that many times from not social workers, from supervisors, and 'cause that's the nature of the game. And I don't know if there's too many places that do echo the same sentiments, but it is key, especially when you have anxiety in this sense. Can you think of a time, or at least a case where, you know, that you did have to kind of remind yourself of, you know, hey, we're just planting seeds. We're not trying to here to harvest or look for something. We're just planting seeds.
Yeah, I have plenty kiddos that I can think of. And
by the way, as a short disclaimer, of course, we're not using literal cases. Of course, these are acclamations or summaries or mix-ups of cases. We're not using names, places, people. So yes,
still protecting all our
HIPAA.
clients' confidentiality.
Of course, don't sue us.
Yes. But yes, there's plenty of clients that I can think of that they just, they weren't ready for it, you know? And so we do the best that we can, which is why we also involve parents a lot in our treatment too, because sometimes a lot of it is work with parents, you know? And so parents are willing to shift, the more likely we're going to see kids willing to shift. And involving the system, the family system too, is important in the work that we do.
All right. You got a case in mind, or, well, at least then I could go first. I know there's one where it's maybe my second year. I'm getting a good flow. I think I'm headed into my third. But even then, I think there's this kid who, this kid I was assigned, I think just really working with ADHD behaviors, traveling out there, traveling to the school, making sure he's set up, working with kind of consistent behavioral approaches at home, reward system, consistent consequences, and things kind of are falling in line, but the family had to move. And so being able to kind of feel like things were going in a good place, and then things start to slowly slide off the rails, and slowly we're not as consistent with holding him to expectations. Now that he knows he's moving, he's acting up a little bit more in school, because what's the point? And we just come to this place where, you know, we try to stabilize, we're trying to put things in place, we're trying to put good incentives in, but we're just running out of time. And just being able to kind of be at our last session and look at him and go through our usual walk that we usually do and talk, and know that this is the last time, and this is my last chance, and I don't know what's waiting for him in the next city. Will they have the same resources? Will they be able to find someone who can click as well as we do? And just a lot of questions. And so just feeling that weight and, you know, hoping and trying to come up with all the therapeutic cliches that we say, or things that I hope, you know, land in, you know, Google's, you know, quote list, or something that, you know, he'll carry this memento with him, is a bit, you know, it feels like kind of grasping at straws a little bit. And so eventually, having come to the point of this is the last time, and where the world will take you. Hopefully they're kind to you, because I think there's a sense of, you know, hey, did I do my job as well as I did, or as well as I could? Did I do all the inventions I knew what was best? Should I have studied a little bit more and brought more into my arsenal so I could fix this? I think there's a piece of sense, or I think there's a sense of, you spend time with these people, you have connections, you invest in them a piece of you, And so, can they really blame you for wanting something well or nice for them? Or even just to hope that, someone else will see kind of what you see in your care and the work that you guys done, and see how far they came, or appreciate some of the stuff and qualities they've worked on, or even that they'll be in good hands as they leave. And so, yeah, I think even with that one, just after case concluded, they moved off, and just, every now and then coming back and hoping that, I don't know, but hopefully they're doing well. Hopefully they got good grades. Hopefully they're finding a place and they're acclimated with family, but then they're just not knowing. And because it would be nice, it'd be reassuring if I knew, oh yeah, you went, and this one thing, you told me worked, and, I was able to do X, Y, and Z. And I don't know, a lot of us therapists, we never get to see the final product or the end. So, and that's something we missed.
Yeah. And as you're going through this transition process and you're having these anxieties, what are you doing for yourself?
I think most of the things that you kind of say, just being optimistic or focusing on the next task at hand usually helps. I mean, in the therapeutic world, yeah, we're just always going to have cases, we're always going to be helping people. And so just being able to kind of make peace or have closure, knowing in the end that you did the best that you could with what you know. And when you know more, you'll do more. And so being able to kind of eventually get to that point of, yes, I did the best that I could. Well, there's some things I could have done more. Yes. Will I eventually get to a point where it's like, wow, I know a whole lot more I could have did with this kid. And yes, but, well, no buts. And yes, and doesn't mean that what you did and the time that you spent and the connection you had did not leave an impact. And so one thing about this profession being very abstract is the sense of there are many different things that can help. There are many different ways that can help. You don't need the best approaches, the best techniques. Some of these things are just the connection you have with the clients. That's healing. Or some people don't think that, hey, if we play a game of Uno, that's not healing, but it is in some way. If you can establish a connection with somebody by just over a game, and that could be all that they need for the week because they didn't have that at all at home or at school, but you gave them that here in this place. And so that's something. Eventually get into that place, or at least in, regularly taking care of yourselves, going out with friends, connecting with your community, talking with your friends, riding bikes, exercising, remembering to do that instead of just being buried in the work, definitely helps pave the way. But eventually you're going to have a sprinkle of optimism and hope for the world.
Yeah. I heard you say that mostly we never get to see the end result, right? Or the end product. Because yes, we do graduate them, they terminate, they go on. But have you ever had a situation where you do hear of them for whatever reason? And what was that like for you? Was it a good thing or a bad thing?
Sometimes. I think there's been some cases that have come back naturally. Some of them where it's been like, okay, what is going on? And it's nice to reconnect and pick up where we left off, or, get a better sense of where they're at. There's definitely been some times where you hear about them and it's not so great. They come back even in worse or dire situations, or things kind of fell through, which happens. Definitely in my earlier years, there's been some times where I had some clients that, I gave them my best shot and we were able to get to close, and they're off, and they came back. And then it's just like, I gave you my best shot. We covered everything. There's not much in my arsenal left. So what's happening? And so the anxiety of, what do I do next? What more can they do? Is this all that I have left in the bag? With time, that's been able to kind of alleviate, because a lot of the pieces is, eventually you will give them tools, they will use them, but a lot of the work then becomes, hey, we talk about it and we try to formulate what's happening in the world and look at all the other facets. But there is some piece of what next? What more can I teach you? What more do I have? How did I do something wrong? And, what's the things that I'm missing? Because there's going to be some unknowns in there. There's definitely some other situations where, it's just, yeah, I think you had mentioned it off air, where it's, it's not great news. You find them in the news, or you find out through the grapevine where, they're in jail, or they're worse off. They got in an accident. And so then it's kind of trying to figure out or be in a place of, could you have done more again? Could you have, is something that you missed? And all of those things are out of your control because these are, individuals with autonomy. They are the masters of their domains and their own journey. And so it's kind of being able to kind of get to a point where you left them be, and there could have been other variables, other factors that came into place, other people that directed them in other ways, even though you planted all the seeds you could. For you, do you feel like it's similar?
Yeah, I think that especially working at an agency, it's more common for clients to come back, that I see them come back. And some clients, you graduate so with a lot of certainty that they're good. They're great. They're fine. They learn things. They're doing everything they need to do. And then, sometimes months, sometimes years, you see them come right back. And like you said, sometimes in a worse state. And when that happens, at least for me, in cases where I hear that they're not doing so well or that they've gotten into a lot of trouble, you do start to revisit everything that you did with that client in the past. And you at least for me, again, I started to think about every interaction and all the conversations and all of the sessions, and could I have done something different? Did I miss something? Could I have done something that would have helped prevent this kid from being in the situation that they're in? And all of that worry and anxiety comes up. And I mean, it happened to me more recently, not too long ago, where I heard of a client that I used to work with who was in a lot of trouble. And then I started to examine like my current cases. I don't hold a lot of kids so much right now, but I did start thinking about everyone that I was working with currently. And I was like, am I doing enough? I don't know. Am I missing something? Is this going to happen again? If a few years down the road, am I going to see this kid on the news? Am I going to hear that, something horrible happened? And you kind of go off into this wormhole of thinking.
Yeah, this spiral of sorts. I think it's definitely was back then. I think now it's just more so of getting to a place that, people are out there. They have these different phases. They may have things and take things from us, and they go out there and out in the real world, but things happen to them. And so just because they come back doesn't mean that we failed or we messed up. It's just more so of, no, life is happening to them. Mm-hmm. So it's just more so of, they'll have it for a time, whatever we worked on, they may have applied, or maybe they didn't apply, and maybe that's why they're back. And it's more so of trying to be able to see what changes are, and we kind of get back in sync and join them on their journey again and pick up. And so try to be gentle and kind to yourself as well, trying to be able to trust the process in which things will click in, trying to be on top of your toes and, make sure that, hey, we're accounting for all the variables. But in the end, they can definitely choose whether to use the tools or not and apply them. They can definitely choose to live life and take it in a direction or pursue the right people or the wrong people or whoever they choose. I think in the end, everybody's just trying to do what's best for them and, heal or escape or, take care of themselves. But with therapists, sometimes we can get a little egocentric, narcissistic a little bit. We are all powerful beings that have control, or we just need to fix things once, and that's it. But I guess, that's where the anxiety comes in. How awesome would it be if we, were omnipotent and able to do that? We wouldn't have anxiety, would we? So, but no, this is a natural part. This is what we signed up for in grad school. So little did we know.
You have experience working with agency and now being in private practice. Has your anxiety changed? Is it less now that you're in private practice? Is it more? Is it different? Is there any differences that you've noticed?
Agency wise, I think a lot of it is just more so business anxiety, more so of, I think it's more business because, if you mess up, then it's maybe not just you that's liable, it is everybody else. Because I think one piece, you have an active supervisor, so you're working under their license or their license is connected to yours. So if you fuck up, their shit is hot. And then, the company is mad. And so then it's just more people are just ripples. Everybody's upset with you. So, or if someone complains, they have someone to complain to. So hey, let me talk to your supervisor. And so anxiety around that piece and
A lot of eyes on you.
A lot of eyes. I think there's also the big community fear and sense of like, what if someone else finds out I'm not doing my job so well? And so then what will the community think? And so a little bit more imposter syndrome. I think status wise, you have the piece in which you as an employee, are you getting enough, or, worried of like, are you growing enough in this place, or would you be better growing somewhere else more freely? That or just sometimes productivity. So then that's a fun piece. Yes, you have to see these number of kids and you have to bill these number of hours. And if you bill lots of hours, then you have to also keep up with notes. And so the anxiety around that. And then sometimes it's just the demand, the caseload. And so then trying to keep up with it, and can you see everybody and can you get it done? And if not, then the dread of that. But private practice, some pieces are alleviated. I don't have a boss, or, don't have to follow. There's no productivity that you have to think about, but in a sense, like there's a piece of which that you're on your own. And so again, you're on an island and trying to remember to be on your P's and Q's, because if you slip up, there's people can report, people can do this, and there's no buffer. There's no big agency that protect you. It's just you. So at least then if I don't like you, bam, sued right there. Or if you miss something or you don't do your due diligence, you're not checking on every client, especially the high risk ones. If that goes above your radar, that's on you. And so there is some sense, or at least some pressure, anxiety that like, hey, did I catch everything? Not only in therapy, but then business wise as well, because you're an entrepreneur. Are you doing everything to kind of also market it as well? Your client load coming in smoothly? Because if that shortens up, then like pretty much all this is like anxiety flourishes even more. So it's a different beast in itself, but it runs well. And so I think in the sense I still follow the same piece. I try my best to kind of like, hey, I just want to be able to show up to work, enjoy my session, do it well, grow in certain regard, and then pop out. So whether that takes extra work or not, yeah, a little elbow grease, never hurt anybody. But yeah, the anxiety between those two different places is different, but it comes with benefits. I think there's also the piece of at the agency, you have more support. You have more people that can understand what you're doing. You're having regular check-ins. Private practice is more freedom, but trying to make sure that you do have people you connect and that maintain good relationships with others. And yeah, it can get lonely sometimes if you don't do that. And so making sure that, hey, if you get to that point, yeah, you can get pretty anxious of like, there's no one around. I'm on this island. There's no one I can talk to. And that's where, again, from the episode, like where anxiety can take over, and that can lead to bad mistakes, and yeah, what people should be looking out for if their therapist is really anxious. One of the big things with private practice, now that, we're talking about community and level of support that I remember, and I don't think we got to in the podcast, was just like big cases. I think there's been plenty of times where big ones have come in, and sometimes it can definitely feel like you are the last line of defense, from whether it's the kids getting dropped out or expelled, or people being suicidal, or people kind of just not in good situations or unsafe situations with partners or their family, and they're counting on you. At least it feels like that. At least it feels like they're counting on you to figure it out, and if you can't, then ... And so I know this was one of the kids like that did come back, and maybe from my second year, and then again came back in my third year when I was at an agency, and I can fairly say this, fairly awkward kid, but always kind of just a flat affect, and like a scary flat affect. There's been plenty of times where just a like gloom and doom. You could see like there's like kind of like a cloud hanging over him, and just very depressed, very nihilistic, very pessimistic about the world and maintaining connections, and just it's heavy. Family loving, happy-go-lucky, running around, smiling, and it's extended. It's mom, dad, siblings, grandparents, all under one roof, and just here's just the dark cloud, not quite black sheep, but just I guess seems like makes himself it, and just I don't know what to do, and he is fresh from the hospital, and so it's just like, okay, here we go, we're just in it, kind of giving the Columbia, at least the it's a suicide risk piece, and then it's just like jumping off the charts. So it's like, is anything going well? And it's like, nope, nothing's going well. You have a piece of like, is anything bringing you joy right now? Nope. And so it's like, is there any friends? Nope. And so basically you are working from scratch. And so being in my second, third year and just trying to figure it out and feeling pressure and hearing about how the school talks about him and hearing about mom being lost and not too sure what to do and how to pull him out, and trying to really pull questions from my supervisor. And she gives me quality responses, but they're not working. Nothing's sticking. And so just feeling like I'm in the lurch and just grasping again at straws and feeling really anxious because now like not even imposter syndrome is here, but then also like what's going to happen not even after he terminates, what's going to happen now? Like I can't predict, I can't see, there's nothing that seems we can't get any traction, and just feeling helpless, hopeless, and like, what else do I have? And so, I mean, it's not the only case I've had that's like that. There's been other ones, and just, I mean, for the most part, eventually it comes to a place where I'm just like, I'm praying. I am praying something clicks, either the seeds I have planted, hopefully one, I'm praying for one, not all of them, just one to sprout. Because if, it's one of those ones where you feel like things are so bleak that he paints. If one thing goes right, I feel like it's a domino effect and it will take off or we'll get somewhere. And so, yeah, some of those cases is just, I don't know if there's other people that in other professions that kind of feel that way, but definitely here in therapy, it's something that like weighs on me.
Yeah. I personally really like complex trauma cases. So when I get cases like that, I like working with kids like that and their families. I feel like I get to like investigate, right? And I get to really like push through like walls. And it feels really good when we get to even just a little bit, like even if it's just one little crack, it's like it makes a big difference.
That's for sure.
Yeah. And they are scary for sure because of the risk of everything that might be going on with them. Like you said, coming from a hospital, that means that, yeah, they went through a crisis that led them to that, and so now they're being handed to you. And it's like, well, what? Okay. Okay, there's so much going on and I'm one person, right? But yeah, me personally, those are the cases that I really liked working with.
Yeah, some of them are good, but definitely.
The cases that brought like more anxiety to me, where I was like, I don't know what to do, was kids or just clients that come in with grief. Those are really hard for me. Those I avoid if I can.
Really?
Yes.
How come?
I think it's because I don't know how to handle death, dying, loss. Really? I don't know. And so a client is coming in to get support, help from that. And I feel lost because I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And then it triggers my own thinking, my own like anxieties about losing loved ones and just even my own death and dying. And I'm just like, I don't think I can be helpful. And so I know that for those particular clients, I don't know. I have a hard time with those.
Fair. Which we all have a certain population or certain demographic or a certain, situation where it's a little bit tougher. Definitely. So then if you could give me advice on the complex ones or the tough cases and managing my anxiety with it, what would you say?
Giving you advice on how to handle the high complex cases?
More so not the high complex, but more of the ones where it's like, it's just you and you need to, like, you're the last line of defense and those cases and you're getting no traction.
I mean, I think it goes back to what we originally were saying at the beginning of the episode of like, when those clients come to us, sometimes we know that there's not a whole lot that they're going to be ready to absorb. And so hanging on to that hope, right? That hope of like, it's going to be okay. Whatever happens, happens. And we know we did what we had to do or could do, what was within our reach. And also knowing that even though it feels like we're the last line of defense, we can always reach to someone or to something or someone else to help or to guide, right? I don't know. I struggle with the idea that like we're the last man standing, right?
I might be a little dramatic. I might be, again, narcissistic therapist here, and just like I'm the only one. Like, I mean, in a sense, sometimes it feels like that because, like, hey, this is what you're quote unquote paying me to do. Paying me to like, hey, my expertise, my experience, my work, my techniques, and my approach is, hey, you feel like I can, boom, be inserted here and support with this. Yeah, I think thinking back to that particular case, I was able to use a lot of extended family. I was able to rely on supervisor and just I'm doing, and eventually just tossing it into his court of, you got to help me out here. You got to actually do the techniques. You got to actually try and be nice to people in your class and make friends. You got to actually go consistently and do your enjoyable activities. And sometimes we got sparks and other things we didn't. And eventually sometimes it was just like, I think you just want to be. Want to be. Because there's some benefits. And
Yeah. And there's a difference of like, does this client see you as that? Or are you putting yourself in that I'm the only one that can help too? And knowing when is one and when is the other. I've had definitely situations in where like parents, for example, will be like, well, you're the expert. Like, why, if you can't do it, what makes you think I can do it at home? Because I like to reframe what therapy is, because sometimes they come in with an expectation of it's supposed to be this way, right? Like, you're the expert. You're supposed to tell me exactly what to do and everything's going to get fixed and everything is going to be fine. And when that happens, when I sense that a client and a family is seeing me as the all-knowing, I like to have a conversation about what is therapy. It's not what you see on TV. It's not what you see in movies. The real work happens outside of therapy. I always equate it to like, I don't know, maybe it's not the best example, but it's like the most simple one that I can think of, where I always say if someone is trying to get healthy, get fit, lose some weight, they're going to go to the gym with a personal trainer for 1 hour, one time a week, and that's great. The trainer is going to teach you what to do, is going to guide you, give you nutrition. But if you leave the gym and you do absolutely nothing for the rest of the week, are you going to have results? Not really.
Maybe not.
If you're not, applying what you've been learning, right? And so it's the same thing for therapy, right? You come to me for 1 hour, 1 hour of the whole week. All the real work happens when you apply what we learn in our session to every other day, right? So the real work happens outside. And so being able to kind of put it back, the responsibility back to them.
And this is key advice. Jeremiah in the second and third year may not have taken that. So, but maybe a little bit. My anxiety was pretty high. Plus, there's, this component of, am I doing well? Am I doing enough? And then you're hearing from the client of, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm trying everything. Nothing's working. And it's like the response of, well, try harder. He just feels, I can make that, comment or statement now. But back then it was just like, oh, no. So this is where experience comes in handy. With grief is always interesting, especially when you talk about like, when you get from existential perspective and just feeling like, this is a piece in which you're normalizing it and just like, hey, this was somebody that, you experienced and loved and cared about and spent all this time with, and you didn't know when you would, they would go and you didn't think or didn't plan on, and then magically they're no longer here. And so being able to kind of, know that there's not much you can do to kind of take the pain away. I think that's where we start to also grasp at straws and be like, oh, if I say this, then maybe this will like alleviate the grief and like, dissipate it or knock it down 5 notches. And no, a lot of this piece is with time and different complexities of who they were and what they mean in my life and what's it mean to move on after that. And never thought I had to move on without this person. And yet this person kind of still pops up in my mind, but everybody kind of seems like they're moving on and life continues to pass and celebrations and things go by, and I'm the only one that remembers this person, and no one is checking in on me about how I'm feeling about this person, even though I lost them a month ago, 6 months ago, 60 years ago, and no one knows that I'm still dealing with it and still suffering. Stephen Colbert and Anderson Cooper had a really good interview that I love to show clients with grief in a sense, just being able to kind of talk about that and wishing that they kind of had a scar so people kind of know, like, oh, how did you get that? And where did it come from? And they would be able to say, oh, like, this is from when this is from my brother when I lost him, and being able to kind of talk about that in a sense and provide the space to be there. And yes, there's going to be many times and many memories, even though they've moved on and done X, Y, and Z, being able to just know that you as a therapist don't have to impose or remove this completely. No, this is something that may be here, but how do we kind of have this here, know what to do, find the supports that we need, and continue life and create the story beyond that? Because I think that sometimes we as therapists kind of get into, I want to get rid of this for you. I want to pull this away because I can see how much you're suffering, and being anxious of like, it's not going away and like, what am I supposed to do? I think it's fair enough to also have that kind of transference in there.
Mm-hmm.
And being worried of like, am I bringing this in? Am I going into the pit as well? And we're both in the pit when I'm actually supposed to be up there. I'm supposed to be helping you out. I can help you out if I'm in the pit with you. I mean, with the anxiety, do you feel like it is like, hey, yeah, this is going to be, am I going to go in and this is going to bring up more stuff for me or too much that I can't handle? Or
Mm-hmm. I think it is that the I'm not supposed to be in these feels with you. Yeah. I don't feel like it's going to be too much that I can't handle. I feel like I don't want to go there.
Yeah, fair enough.
During the episode, I remember I said there's certain clients that trigger certain things, and I put a little like sticky note like, oh, this is something I should probably come back to. And this is definitely one of those things where it's like, at some point, I'm going to have to really like sit there and think about my own losses and my own fears about death and dying. And I will. Obviously, we all have to at some point. But every time it comes up, I'm just like, not yet.
Well,
yes.
it might be time.
And interestingly, yesterday, Dia de los Muertos is one of my favorite holidays. And it was just yesterday. And it's one of my favorite holidays. And it's all about death and dying. But then when it's like my losses and, me, it's like,
it's mine. It's not ours. We're not. Yeah. I think that does come up. And so being worried about your own countertransference and what comes up there, and will you be able to kind of not make this my session, but more so like, hey, no, it's still the client's, but then will there be residual stuff that I have to kind of also unpack, and how can I do that if I have another session after this? And
It reminds me of like the entire like pandemic year where we were still expected to show up telehealth for everyone, and everyone's dealing with the same anxieties, and so am I. And me talking to my supervisor was like, how am I supposed to help when we're all in this? We're all in this pool right now, this storm, whatever you want to call it. And I don't know. I'm not helping because I'm trying to survive too. And that's the type of feeling that I'm like, I'm avoiding.
Yes. So then this would probably be a great plug for therapy. So, we all got our own work to do. And so why not? Why not? Which I feel like is its own anxiety provoking situation in of itself of like, yeah, therapists going to therapy, feelings about that.
About therapists going to therapy?
Yeah.
I think it's great. I do go to therapy.
The sense of anxiety there, at least then before, when you're like, you know what, I think it's time, I'm going to do it. Yeah. What anxiety do you feel like started to come up?
Definitely I appreciated my clients a lot more because being in the client seat, I'm so comfortable being in the therapist seat. And I had to force myself to, not force myself, but it was, like you said, it was time. There was things that I needed to sort out for myself. And going through that whole process of finding a therapist and doing the intake and then the first session, I was like, whoa, like this is a lot scarier than I imagined, but more so because I never grew up with like, it's okay to ask for help culturally, And so even though I am a therapist, I'm still clashing with cultural ideals, in my mind. And so I feel like that's where more of the anxiety was coming from, where I was like, am I supposed to do this? Even though I'm sitting on the other side encouraging people to do this, And so it was an interesting experience for sure. But in my sessions and in learning more about myself and just having like aha moments in my sessions, I remember I was like, man, therapy's kind of cool. And then I was like, wait, I'm a therapist.
Yeah, I can go do
This is
this right
kind
now.
of cool.
Yeah.
And there was like an appreciation of like what I did more than before, because I experienced it from the other side. And I remember that exact session where I was just like, hey, what I do is kind of cool. Like I never realized like how cool it can be,
Yeah.
and how healing and how just positive it can be. And so that was a nice surprise for me.
I mean, I definitely feel like in the beginning for me, it was that piece of like what we talked about earlier, just like, no, I need to protect my confidence. If I open this crack, then all of this will like just go away and my confidence will fleet. And finding one, initially I went through Kaiser, so at least then that was a shitty process because, yeah, it was tough. Eventually, when I changed jobs, I was able to find one, and just like anxiety about like, okay, which is the best one, and this one has this approach, and I don't think that will work for me, and just anxious of like, okay, I selected one, hopefully we mesh well. I mean, there's not too many Black therapists, so I mean, there's just like I'm gonna have to choose one that is not gonna have my background. Am I gonna have microaggressions? Is it gonna be as bad as the blogs say, or at least other Black people have said? And no, get in there, and it's nice. And I think it's been able to kind of show me the other side, that there's some pieces where you can mess up as a therapist, or we can have a bad session. But once again, like you said, therapy and the work that's done is done outside. You applying things to your life and living it and enjoying and finding enjoyment and experimenting and coming back and be like, hey, here's what I learned, and we decompress. When you guys mentioned like, oh yeah, I stole this from my therapist, I stole that from my therapist, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the thing. So being able to kind of take that and apply it to work has been rejuvenating. And so I think it just ties back to like therapists and being in this island and wanting to save your confidence, and even taking that step to go to therapy is just so rejuvenating and opens up the doors and makes you a better therapist. And so trying to be able to overcome that, trying to be able to be like, yeah, let's be open and honest about our vulnerabilities and the challenges we face and the difficulties of being human and flawed beings is important to us. And so let's not let that stop us from being our authentic selves and truthful and happy, or just being good clinicians for our clients. So look at that. See, we were only supposed to go for 20 minutes and we just was on a roll, Ceci.
I do have another question that I just remembered. In the episode, I remember you talked about asking yourself, can I do this forever?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until after, when I was driving home, where I was like, I wanted to ask you that same question, but a little bit different.
Ooh, okay.
And so instead of like asking yourself, can I do this forever? Asking yourself, like, do I want to do this forever?
Okay, so at least in that button, that's rubbing against another, I guess that's another path. Do I want to do this forever? I do want to do this forever, as long as I can, as long as I'm mentally able. I think that's been able to kind of factor into the previous one. I truly love therapy. I think there's a lot of pieces in which growing up I saw different pieces kind of in there. Always loved listening to people, always loved helping out and giving advice, or just giving people space to kind of be themselves. And I really appreciated that about me, how calm I am and sometimes insightful, and just tuning into where I am at. I think other pieces of like just being a detective or a storyteller or just a listener to see how everything kind of fits and how did all the characters feel, and being able to kind of capture what people are saying and being able to kind of like really piece together, put into words exactly kind of, oh, that's exactly what I was thinking, or being able to give them right questions, like even interview styles and stuff like that. It all just kind of feels like, oh, this is just the perfect fit. But it is taxing. It is overwhelming. There are some pieces and some days where it's just like, yeah, the anxiety is too much and it doesn't feel super great. And then the next day it's gone, and I'm right back in it because I love it so much. Forever, though, I think is just more in a sense of, I feel like there's more things to do. I think this podcast, scratches an itch in the sense of not only are we doing therapy and we're helping as many people as we can, but now it's, hey, I would also like to do this. And there's content in which, we can help more people. I mean, in our warm-up episode, we kind of talk about just going over some of the places that we received downloads from, and just being like, oh, like there's someone in Croatia, there's someone in Australia that's listening, someone in Thailand that's like, hopefully they taking something from, what we've talked about, or some of the stories that were shared on here, and just being able to, like, if I could help more people, the one person in Georgia that listened, the one person in the Philippines, the one person in London that listened, and they took something and they applied it and they feel better as a therapist, like, or just better as a human being on earth. Like, that feels amazing. I think there's still a sense of like, I would like to be a professor, like to teach a few courses. I would love to go on talk shows and, or be an expert that pops up on the news and explains, oh, this is why teens are having more depression and anxiety these days. And so at least there's just more a sense of, yeah, I want to do this forever, but I think there's a lot of other things I would like to do as well. And so can I do them all? Maybe not, maybe in facets or little sprints or phases. But in order to do this forever, it has to be spread out. And so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You have to take little breaks from it, because it is a lot for sure. And I do say that a lot. I say, if you want to do this for a really long time, you have to learn how to take care of yourself. And that means also paying attention to those other things that you really love to do. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Making room for them. But yeah, some of the stuff can be tough to kind of follow through with, but it's about, I think everything is possible, which I tell all my clients and everybody, anything is possible. It's just more a matter of how. And so, I can I can earn $1 million. It's just more so, how can I do it? How do I need to budget? How do I need to spend? Who do I need to know? And so how do I need to invest? And so all those things, if they're right combination, you're disciplined, then they work. And so figuring it out. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
So yes. Thank you for coming in, Ceci. Of course, if you guys want to find her, speak to her, then you guys can find her here on Therapy House. Until then, Ceci might pop in a couple other episodes.
I hope so. This is fun.
Exactly. So
I hope I'm not boring.
Of course not. So, of course, thanks for tuning in, guys. It's a wrap. Like, comment, rate, review our podcast. It's the only way we get bigger. If you guys want to come in and join us, feel free to slide into our DMs, emails, etc. Let us know. You can come in, sit on our therapy couch, and we'll hand you a mic and see, hey, what you got. Until then, J Knight is out. Peace. Say bye, Ceci.
Bye.